I have a theory is robotics should be used where it's hard for humans to do a job rather than replacing being accurate to a 16th of an inch on a 2000-foot floor is very difficult for a human to do. Hey.
Rishabh, coffee, tea, or something else? What fuels your morning?
Actually, I have none of it early in the morning. I straight away
None?
go to take a bath, and recently I've been taking a coffee like at least a couple of hours after waking up, and I think
Yep.
that works much better for me.
You know, I read something about that actually. Like the jumping straight into caffeine isn't ideal for your body anyway. So giving yourself a chance to wake up naturally, or like you said, having a shower, having a bath, whatever, a walk, and then doing that is probably the better way. So good
Yeah,
for you.
what about
When
you?
you were me? Oh, my mornings are very strange in that respect. So I actually start with a glass of warm water, um, and then I put apple cider vinegar, beetroot
Oh yeah,
extract, squeeze of lemon, and salt.
nice, nice.
Yeah, and then
Something that I've heard is pretty good, like a pinch of salt or like cider
yes,
vinegar. Yeah,
yeah. So it helps with like hydration and digestion and all of that stuff straight away. And then I actually have like this pre-workout and electrolyte drink before because I try to exercise first thing in the morning.
yeah,
Um, and then later on I'll have a coffee. Yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah. If I get to that point, but normally I do. It's sooner rather than later. um,
Nice.
I'm curious about when you were a kid. What did you think you'd grow up to be?
Yeah, I was always fascinated by like building things. So like I had this set of toys. So I used to
Mhm.
build like these driving bulldozers and stuff over there as well. So like my initial was like I'll grow up to like design F1 cars or like some high speed cars
Yeah,
or like more into like automotive side like sports
interesting.
car designing those kind of things. So that was what I wanted to be because that was seemed to be the coolest thing at that point in time.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, how many of us had like sports cars on our walls or like our
Yeah.
computer backgrounds, right? So growing up to design that work in that field, I'm sure that was the dream.
Yeah.
Um, what's one technology that you can't live without?
I would guess that would be the phone. Like the way
Yeah.
it's ubiquitously used, like for calls and all. I'm like, yeah, it's hard to imagine a world now where people don't have the phones.
hmm Yeah, connectivity, right? I think we take it for granted for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it's grown beyond connectivity now, like into like it's an everything. It's your maps. It's
everything
everything.
device, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I use the word connectivity in like such a broad sense because yeah, even that think we take for granted because connectivity used to just be calling each other, before you were sending letters,
Yeah.
right? But now connectivity is like, well, I'm staying connected to the wider world with news or social media. I've got, like you said, maps. I've got my banking. I've got everything on this device, which is, yeah, crazy when you think about it and scary.
Yeah, when I was moving to US, my dad was like, "How would you know the ways? You have not been there. Like, how will you reach from your hotel to from airport to hotel?" I was like, "There's Google Maps. Like, we don't.
Yeah,
I'll just enter the address. It will tell me where to go." And like, I guess even for a generation above us or two generations above us, it's still mind-boggling that we don't have, we don't remember the way. We just put the address and just
I
drive.
know.
And this is a change which I think has happened in the last 10 years only. Like, it wasn't the case before that.
It wasn't. I mean, even to the point, like one of my old bosses, he was like adamant, I don't want to just rely on my phone for people's phone numbers, which is crazy. It's like we're just leaving our brain to do like our brains are idle now. We don't know our directions. We don't remember people's numbers. We don't have any of that. He's like purposely trying. I was like, that's a little extreme, but I get I get it because even from the map standpoint, I was when I moved to LA, I would rely on it so heavily and still do, but to the point where I wasn't even remembering the way places that I'd drive to 15, 20 times. I'm like, I should probably know my way by now instead of relying on this map. But then I'm like, well, I don't know what the traffic's going to be like. I don't know if there's roadworks. All of this stuff you'd never know beforehand.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think like I've been actively trying not to use maps, so like it gives you a sense of belongingness if you can go from A to B without using
Yes.
maps, and you can just reach there. I know where to go, and
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a client that I go on site there a couple of times a week, and now I mean, they're only 20 minutes away, but at first I was like, I don't know these roads. I've never been to this part before, but now I'm like proud of myself because I can drive 20 minutes without a map, which is a bit ridiculous, but
yeah, that's how it is for everybody, I guess, these days.
it is. It is. Um, if you could fast forward 10 years and see one impact that your work's made on the world, what would that be?
Um, I think like I would like something that I've created be used by a lot of people, and that provides them with a better lifestyle in some form or fashion. It could be a tool that somebody is using. So something that is being used by a lot of people and makes a tiny, tiny impact in somebody's life. And it's like somebody's answer is that this is the technology I can't live without down the line. And
Hmm.
then I would say, then that would be the impact I want to leave.
Yeah, I like that. That's really nice. Welcome to Machine Minds, everyone. I'm your host,
Thanks,
Greg
Greg.
Trusian, yeah,
Yeah.
founder of Samson Rose. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Rishabh Aggarwal, CTO of Raise Robotics. Thanks for being on the show today, Rishabh.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me, Greg. It's been very nice chatting with you at a couple of events we have met up, and like I'm really excited about this conversation.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, I'm glad we got this scheduled. And it seems like a really great time, which we'll obviously talk about everything you guys have going on and the milestones. So let's jump into it. Um, Before we go into Raise Robotics and everything,
Yeah.
I wanted to find out more about you and your background because you've had some cool experiences before joining Raise, and I'd like for you to kind of set the stage and walk us through your career path up to this point.
Right. Like as I mentioned, I was always into building things. So even in college, like we had this motorsport club. So we used to make these all-terrain vehicles in our grad school, and then we used to compete in like international events where like all the collegiate would get together to compete. So this was competition was called as Baja at that point. So like all the day was spent in like labs, turning on
Mm,
nuts and bolts, creating designs, manufacturing and stuff. So that is when I realized like I really like building things. Like it's not something that I've been told, it's something that I can spend hours on without getting bored. So my initial instinct when I graduated from from undergrad was, let's join a startup where I can do build things and there is less bureaucracy, less politics and such.
nice.
So right out of school, one of my senior was working starting his own company, and he said that we are trying to make a device which can get coupled to a diesel engine generator, and then it can collect all the soot particles from its tailpipe directly
Mm,
without it getting emitted into the atmosphere. Like that sounds like a cool plan, like because of like air pollution and stuff being a thing in Delhi. So joined them, innovated it, built out the team, hired a bunch of my friends as co-working research fellows with me, and then
yeah.
uh, went through multiple iterations. And then we had a device, installed it on multiple generators, and like we were capturing like these black sludge after
Oh,
every
wow.
month, and then we were using that sludge and converting into inks and paints that could get printed
Very
with
cool.
box. So it was very fascinating. Like within a month, you have this like drum full of sludge from one single generator, and you're like, if this was not captured, it's all going into the air by like thousands of these generators.
Wow. Wow. That's impactful work straight away, right? I'm
Yeah,
curious
yeah,
for you, it's kind of like I don't want to say a mature viewpoint or perspective, but kind of not the norm to say, hey, when I graduate, I'm going to go to a startup, less bureaucracy, moving fast, and all of that, so I can build things. Because a lot of people, um, I think they're split into three buckets, right? There's one bucket where they just don't know and they just look for any job that they can as long as it's got the title that they want and working in the
right.
kind of field. There's the group that you would fall into, that understands, it seems like, or has the awareness of the benefits of joining a startup, and what that does for your career. And then there's other people that are just like, I've always wanted to work for X company, like this big company, or these are the only ones that I know in that field. That's what I want to join. It's big, it's stable, it's been around for ages, and
Yeah.
I want my very specific role, like this bucket to be put in. Where did your perspective come from? Where did that awareness come from?
So my dad was in like a public company, like thousands and thousands of employees. So like from household side, it was like go into a bigger job. Like the perception was the bigger the company, the more stabler the job. The perception was,
Mm.
and like even in like I would say 2017, 2018, when I joined the workforce, like startups were not these like sexy stable things as they are now. Like, oh, I'm going to work in startup. It was not a accepted societal norm because there were not a lot of success people had seen using those. So I think like it was mostly coming from me watching YouTube, watching people building things, and then I had this perception that the startups are the next big thing, and then this is what I want to try. More importantly for me, it has always been like one single metric has been what is it that I can do every day without looking at the watch. Like if I do not have to look at the watch and the time is passing by on its own, I'm not looking, oh, it's 5 o'clock, let's go home, then that is the metric I really hold strong to, that then this is the passion I want to follow.
Yeah,
So I was like, what? And politics and bureaucracy is something that I wanted to avoid at all costs. And I was like,
I
bigger
bet.
the company, more the politics.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, good for you for being aware of that, right? Like, not
Yeah.
everyone is. What were some of the pivotal moments or even projects in your career that shaped the way that you approach building technology today?
Yeah. After that, like I came to US and I was working with NASA for a while to design some cube satellites for them. And then I joined this agri-tech company, Tortuga AgTech, where
Hmm?
we were designing autonomous robots for harvesting, where I would say most of my learning happened of like how to build technology, how the hardware and software interface, like the real world learning happened in that course of time. um, One of the pivotal moments was like we were like, hey, let's make everything of our own. We'll make our own batteries, we'll make our own robotic arms, we'll do everything from scratch. And then there was a fire in one of the batteries while it
Mm,
was at a customer site. And then we had to call the fire brigade and everything, evacuate everybody from the entire farm. And so it was a big chaos. So my learning was like, uh, one should not make everything on their own. Like that is seems very nice, like everything is made from scratch, but honestly it's not really good thing. It should be the other way around. Like this is a thing that works 90% of what I want to be, so I can just plug and play it rather than building something from scratch. And it takes a while from the technological perspective for things to get stable. It takes a while. So
yeah,
first the hardware will get stable, then the software will get stable, then the users will get stable, and that is when the use case will come out. And that takes years of time. So if go to market being faster is your approach, then buy something off the shelf that you can use, even if it's a little bit not to your liking on the feature side.
interesting. Yeah, that as well, I guess, is more of a mature and experienced viewpoint, right? I think that's a lot of conversations, or conversations that a lot of companies in general, not just startups, have, or debates that they have internally, the build versus buy
Yeah.
um, angle. And you make a good point. Do you think it's, I guess, if you're a company that is purely or predominantly software focused or hardware focused, it makes sense to just buy the other side of it. But do you have a perspective on which is better? Like, if you're a software company, just buy hardware. Like, don't try and create your own, or there's value in being a hardware company. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like it's not even buying the other thing. Like even if you're a hardware company, let's say you're a robotics company for agriculture, the customer does not care whether you're made an in-house camera or you have bought a camera and placed it over there. He does not care about the battery which you have used or the arms. He's looking at the metrics. So I would say, like, as far as the application is being satisfied, you should initially go ahead and buy out, like, using off the shelf software libraries to build your robot, off the shelf cameras and everything. And then you should be like, okay, now I have a PMF, or like product market fit. Now, how can I improve on the performance? But what is the first thing that I need to change? And so it should be driven from application, like customer side of view, to what to change, what will make the most impact for the customer, and not from your expertise. Expertise is something you can bring on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like that. So what inspired you to take on the CTO role at Raise Robotics?
Yeah, so I was working at Tata Agtech for 4 years, and I wanted. There were a lot of things that I was like, if I were to make a decision, I will do it this way, and I think this would be a better way to do it. And this opportunity was really unique in the sense that when we look at the construction industry, it's very fragmented and inefficient. And I feel like the maximum impact you can make is by automating a more broken industry to have a larger impact. Like, the more broken the industry is, the more impact you can make to make it
Yeah.
better. So those were a couple of things that were all combining to make me take this role at Raise Robotics.
Interesting. So let's switch gears and actually talk about Raise Robotics. For listeners who might not be familiar, can you give us like an overview of the company and the problem that you guys are trying to solve?
Yeah. So Raise Robotics is an autonomous robotics company that is specializing in solving construction problems. So you can imagine this is a robot on wheels which has robotic arms, very long and strong robotic arms that can go onto uh, onto a construction space, like a skyscraper is being built. It can go on like 10th floor and perform operations that are happening on the edge of the building. So the
Mm,
value proposition is that this is a platform which has a variety of tools. So the robot can switch its own tools and do a variety of jobs like layout marking, scanning, inspection, drilling, bracket installation. So anything the people were doing by bending on their backs, doing things or required high accuracy, those are the kind of work that we are doing on a construction site.
that's very cool. That's very cool. Construction is obviously an industry that has a bunch of unique challenges. I mean, you're mentioning some there, like on the 10th floor, doing stuff on the edge of the building, things like that. What made Raise Robotics focus here, and what's like the unique opportunity that you guys saw in the space?
Yeah, what we were seeing is, as we were talking to subcontractors and contractors, is that a lot of issues happen from plan to the execution level. In the execution level, why does it take a building to get 3 years to make? Why is it not 1 year? It's not
Mm,
that the work is continuously done by 3 years. It's more like the work has to be redone time and again. So, like on skyscrapers, we were seeing that people would put up panels on the building and then take them out, all of them, and then do it all over again. And we were like, why is that happening? So, these are called facade installations. So, like the entire skyscraper. So, we realized that they had to stack them up perfectly so that they align in the corners and meet. And if they did not meet in the corner, they had to take the entire floor off.
wow.
And that was millions of dollars of rework. So time, money, resources, all are getting wasted. And it was a common recurrence for us to see that. So we were like, we will draw out and lay out the entire floor, and we, if you follow our markings, then the panels will meet at the edge of the building for sure.
So prior
And
to that, it wasn't really markings. It was just like, hey, this is how they came built. We'll just stick them all up. This is how the panels came made. We'll just stick them up and hope that they meet in the corner.
they had a layout team that used to do some work, but there
Yeah.
were errors of like an inch, a half an inch, and then
Wow. Okay.
the answers would vary from person to person. So they had the solution to it, but the execution was not good. So
Got
I
it.
think that is where what we have a, or I have a theory is like, robotics should be used where it's hard for humans to do a job rather than replacing doing a repetitive job. So,
Mm,
like being accurate to a 16th of an inch on a 2000-foot floor is very difficult for a human to do. Like 16th is like
right.
vibration of a hand. So that is where robotics comes into play of like marking things accurately, and it's not difficult for robot to see like this is the edge of the building,
Right.
but for humans it's much more difficult.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay. Can you break down like the core technology? How do your robots actually work on site and what differentiates them from other automation in construction?
Right. So the way the robot works is like when the robot goes on a construction floor, the first thing is robot needs to know its exact location on where it is on the construction floor. So we take the control points on the floor and the robot is able to localize itself accurately on the construction floor. And once the robot knows exactly where it is at, now if you ask the robot to do any job, it could be drill at this location, layout marking at this location, or edge inspection at this location, it does it. And then it reports back with the quality control report that, okay, this is the layout marking that I've done. It is at these coordinates. It is off by a 16th of an inch from what I wanted it to be. And that goes and gets shared with the customers. So
Mm.
the core technology is the ability of robot to know where it is and then have a suite of tools on top to do a variety of job. The other thing we focused on is we were told that if your job is only doing one, if your robot is only doing one job, then it's not a good use case for the construction company. They won't have hundreds of robots parked outside, one for each use case. So you should solve multiple problems like for each stage. And so that is what we have been doing for a while now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it's a good point. You know, that's always a case because robots aren't cheap, right? And even for
Right.
things like construction or food tech or agriculture tech, it's like having a multi-use robot is probably the best bet instead of one that's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, single use repetitive tasks that'll just like high volume and can run 24/7, lights out is great as well. But
Right.
if it's like, hey, we need it for a portion of the day, how do we use it
It's
when
not.
it's downtime? Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
what's been the toughest technical challenge you've had to solve so far?
Toughest technical challenge. I think one of the technical challenges, like since we are servicing the robot on the edge of the building, then the entire robotic arm, which is like around 220 pounds, hangs on the edge of the robot doing work. So it's hard to
Ah,
like keep it suspended and balanced and keep the robot very stable to a 16th of an inch. So the robot
hmm,
has to be like a rigid rock the entire time this massive robotic arm is being working. And the robot has to be smaller form factor and it has to work in rainwater, whatever happens. So our robot works in rain, it works in dust. Like construction sites are like all over the place, right?
yeah.
There are nails on the ground, whatever happens, this robot, like you cannot have a flat tire.
Yeah, uptime is definitely going to be important, especially if you're 10 floors up, right? Bringing a robot all the way up there. So
Yeah, so this robot just enters the hoist with the people and then it goes on the level and then it exits out.
that's so cool. What a change for the contractors to now have like a robot teammate. That's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, I am focused on the hiring side and recruiting, team building, and I really want to spend a bit of time there because these aren't easy problems to solve as a startup, especially with hardware components. Like you want to be lean, you want to be mean, but you've got to execute. As a CTO, how do you balance having like visionary technology leadership and direction with the day-to-day challenges of actually executing at the stage of company that you guys are in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what it all comes down to is the culture we have that we are a customer focused company, that all our requirements are coming based on what the customer biggest pain points are. And so if even if I have an idea of a visionary technology which would be very good to have, it all comes down like how is it benefiting the customer, and then breaking down that visionary technology into like day-to-day execution, bringing the team on board. Hey, we are planning this thing out which is 8 months out. We are going to break it out into these smaller chunks, and if we are able to execute this, then it will impact the customer in xyz way.
Yeah.
So if the entire argument is broken down into this is what we are going to do because it will affect the customer in this way, then it's easier for getting the people aligned with the same mission and the same vision. And then, as a CTO, the task is to take the visionary approach and break it down into smaller, digestible chunks, and then convert a vision into a day to day execution plan.
I like that. So it sounds like aligning, understanding, and being really bought into your mission and vision is key.
Yeah.
So you obviously require a strong team on the technical side as well as culture fit. What do you look for when you're hiring top engineers?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think as a startup, it's initially at least it's very difficult to get the positions filled because people still want to work for like the larger companies versus
Yeah,
startups, and there is a very select few that still want to work with startups. So the thing is, first is like the intent of the person, or like what is his intent? Is like, oh, I want to build this thing, I want to solve problems. Or the other side is that I just want a 9 to 5 to work on, I'll do a good job. But if the intent is to build something big or to create or solve a problem intrinsically, then that is the intent is the most important factor, I think. Because if that is there and the person is hardworking, then the skills can be learned over a period of time. It is only
yeah,
a matter of like whether he'll learn in 3 months, 6 months, but there should be an intent in the first place.
that's great.
And the other thing is, it's helpful to hire people who have had a startup experience, in the sense of they have seen the fast-paced nature of work, and if they have, then that's an added bonus that we look for.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a added bonus, like you mentioned, and it's always I found it an interesting one to set the expectations with people, right? Because you
Yeah,
use, I think everyone uses the universal cliches of it's a startup, you wear many hats, it's hectic, it's ambiguous, we can change, like priorities change and all of that stuff. But unless you have been in that kind of environment or like are made for that environment, it's a hard one to really get your head around. It's like, what do you
yeah,
mean my
yeah,
role is going to change in 2 months from, or what do you mean I have to take on all these other things just from my own abilities or own interest? I just have to absorb new duties and responsibilities. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think like I feel at some point like the skill and aptitude matter less, and it's more the attitude that matters more over a
Yeah.
longer course of time, like a couple of years. And what I've seen is like how much a person grows. Like at some point, we see the person kind of plateaus, but like some very good people continue to grow slowly and steadily, slowly and steadily. And after you see those people, after 2 years, 3 years, they are now a completely different person to the one who you had hired in first place. So it's very hard to see that during the hiring process, but that I think is the most impactful thing for a company, is like how to continue growing all the people you have in your team over the course of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I think that also is a good way of like not vetting people out, but the right people self select to stay on that path. They're going to be the ones that are going to be learning and evolving and growing with the company, with what the company needs, but then also like the stage of the company, right? And if they don't, if they're not going to, then they will opt out organically along the way, right? And end
Yeah.
up something else. Um, are there any lessons that you've learned about attracting talent into this space in robotics that surprised you?
That surprised me. I'm seeing that people from large companies who have worked in large companies for like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years choose to make a transition to smaller companies and startups after a period in time. And that has been a little bit of
Yeah,
surprising to me, because they are like, I do not find the satisfaction at the end of the day because I'm a small cog in the wheel. I do something and I don't know how it really floats down, makes an impact, but I
yeah,
just go and do this small chunk of work. What is its impact? I'm not really sure.
right.
So over a period of time, like 2 3 years, they get unsatisfied with their job. So I've been seeing a trend now that people from big companies like Meta, Google, and Apple are moving down to startups. Either they are creating their own, are they founders, or they join the founding company, founding engineers, or just as regular employees, but they have been pretty that's a trend that I've been seeing at least in the recent times with the physical
Yeah.
AI space getting all the heat it has been.
Yeah, that's a good point. You also see the ones that have been in those companies and they get kind of, they're either a small cog in the wheel, not know how their work or their role actually impacts the bigger picture, or they just really want to ship something. They're like,
Yeah,
I've been working on these things that the timelines are so long, there's so much red tape, things are just slow. I want to see my product come out into the commercial world, or at least to a user to get some feedback.
yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've seen. Cool. Let's talk a bit about your insights on the industry and the future of the space, because construction, it's often seen as one of the last frontiers for automation. What do you
Mhm.
think is going to accelerate adoption in the space?
Yeah, I think like what will really accelerate adoption is all the decision makers are in the construction space. You can imagine are these 50, 60 year olds who have seen the way we being work done in a specific way, and it kind of works, right? And they are now very apprehensive of a change. So that is why the construction is a bit slow to adopt. I think if a company does come in the robotic space and does their work and becomes a regular part of the tools, like it becomes like a scissor lift or like a spider crane, like a regular construction equipment, then that will instill confidence in them that if X works, X is working everywhere, it works fine, then
Mhm.
they will give more chances to Y's and Z's. So I
Yeah,
think for somebody to be successful in this industry, whether it's us or somebody else, would really open up the doors for all the other ones and also like improve the overall construction industry as well.
yeah, yeah. I like that. That's true. And from your perspective, where do you see the biggest gaps in robotics technology today?
Interesting. I think the gaps are in the human robot collaboration space. Like, generally, if you see you have a robotic arm which is caged inside a cage and doing an operation, I think as we go further, we need to work closer to the robot, like the robotic arm is going around, and then there is a sense of perception which sees like where the people are, where the things are, not to run into them. And that human robot collaboration is not really there right now. But with the advent of sensors, the new computation powers that are coming in, it's becoming more and more feasible to have AI on the edge being built to solve these problems.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. If we're looking ahead, how do you see Raise Robotics evolving over the next sort of like 5 to 10 years as a company and also the product that you guys are building?
Yeah, I think with what we have built is a platform on wheels with arms can do a variety of jobs that does not really limit us on the construction space. This is where we see the biggest pain point. But I think like this will become a more of a ubiquitous robot going into multiple spaces like manufacturing, oil and gas. Like you can imagine going in oil and gas, this robotic arm is going into terrains which are very risky, salty water and such, and then checking, inspecting the things and tightening the nuts and all doing all the rigorous stuff. So we are looking at a robotic platform with a suite of tools, and then this robot can be applied into multiple different industries as we go. And for a company, it would be very beneficial like if we go into one specific sector or one specific task and do it very, very well. And that
Mhm.
will really build trust and the technology so that we can now copy and paste this across multiple different industries.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of doing it. And I like the whole platform perspective, like, and positioning for that, because if you are a construction site or energy company and you're looking at a multi-use platform or tool that you can bring in, it's a great way of positioning it and also to build on top of it, right? And add more to your platform
Yeah,
capability wise and end effectors or whatever else it is.
exactly.
But what trends in robotics excite you most right now?
I think very recently, in the last at least 4 or 5 months or a year, physical AI space has The robotics is now being called the physical AI instead of robotics,
Yeah.
basically. With But there is a lot of interest, and now people are seeing that at a point, like, it really doesn't benefit the society if software is good, but we need physical things to utilize the software to really advance our lifestyle, or like to really live a better life. So with companies like Nvidia investing into it, OpenAI has its robotics division. So big money is flowing into the physical AI space, and because of which, what has happened is, computations like this creates a ripple effect, and the suppliers to these companies now level up because they have the ability to. So like the cameras, the sensors, the computes, the battery systems, these all offerings become much more easier to get to. So, even over the course of 6 years now, I've seen like there is so much things that already exist, so the buy to build decision becomes easy, and if you're buying, then your deploying becomes easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's been, I think that's been the biggest realization because from a, we have been in the industry for a while, so we know like the term or the categorization of AI has become a lot looser. And
Yeah,
since ChatGPT came out and like that, but there's been obviously a lot of areas of AI, and I think the benefit of the influx of money into it and adoption with technology. I mean, it's easy to get a new AI tool for a business or for an individual, but like the bigger picture, like you said, and I think I've repeated this so many times, but that's been going to be the biggest change and impact is where AI meets the physical world and the
well,
hardware space, right? Because on a day to day basis or on a economic basis or even like looking at construction, all of that, when you integrate the two together and really start automating or really start like having people accepting this in their day-to-day life, that's the biggest shift. Instead of, hey, I have a new browser,
yeah.
great. Not to downplay like how great those technologies are, but it's like how much better can it make things in our life,
Right.
um, especially with some of these industries and the aging population of the workers or the even the employment issues. You know, we can't even staff up these building sites, these
Yeah,
facilities out there for logistics. So yeah. Sorry, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent
no,
there. I obviously feel passionate about it, but yeah, no, it's a very good point. I'm glad that you said that.
like Waymo I think is a good example of, like, if you have been in a Waymo, that it takes years to make a car autonomous drive on a road. So like,
Yeah,
but now you have like hundreds of them flying on the streets in multiple cities now. I think like physical AI, like when these software companies go into the physical space, they realize, oh, hardware is hard, and
yeah,
software in hardware is extra hard. Like it's complex over complex. So I think over the next 10 years, with the amount of resources that is being put into this, we'll see a drastic change in how we interact with things in life.
yeah, yeah. For that point of hardware being hard, I think it's so much easier in a lab or a test environment to get something to work one
Yeah,
time or 10 times, right? But when using the autonomous vehicle industry, thinking about how long it's taken and how
yeah,
much money's been pumped into it, and it had to be like this combination or culmination of the hardware cost and capabilities aligning with now the software. Obviously there's other things like regulation and safety and all that work in parallel, but it would not have been reliable to have these vehicles doing hundreds thousands of rides a day 5 years ago, 10 years
5 years
ago,
ago.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think even 5 years ago, like I was talking to this Waymo functional safety person recently,
Mhm.
and then they have like multiple redundancies built into it. So like your car has one engine, one brake, one steering. They have like two of each.
Got it.
Like
Yeah, you need that, right? It's not as
exactly.
simple as just taking the
Yeah,
car off the road and like, hey, we're just going to change the software, stick a sensor on it.
yeah. I think it
But
is interesting time. I'm pretty curious to see how the next 2 3 years turn out. Like either these companies stick with this space, or they're like, this is too difficult, too money. They are hogging money. Let's
The
pivot to
autonomous vehicle ones you're talking about?
no, the like OpenAI people who are
Yeah,
building robots, and like Meta or Nvidia
yeah,
making robots.
yeah. It's going to be interesting because you see in every industry and time again the ones that are doing something really cool. I mean, take Meta for example, and then doing what was it? Their what was the virtual world stuff that they were doing at
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
point?
The
Meta,
using Oculus, yeah,
yeah, and like seems like a good idea. Takes a lot of money, but at the end of the day, these are public companies and they have to
report
report.
profits. Yeah,
So if you're taking something that's a big financial risk and investment, it's got to pay off at some point. So yeah,
right.
it's going to be interesting to see. And like you said, it's going to be a lot harder than a lot of them think, but they do have deep pockets. So we'll see. I just see more consolidation happening, right? There's always the acquisitions,
Yeah.
acqua hiring.
That's what they'll do is like hire the team specialist rather than building. Their build
Yeah,
and buy is not on product level. Their build and buy is on the technology level.
yeah. Whole company.
The whole company, yeah.
Uh, Before we start getting to the end, I'm curious to get some of your advice for engineers or entrepreneurs looking to make an impact in robotics. What would you share with them?
I think innately there should be innately there should be interest in building things. If you are into the robotic space, then you have to see that do you have a penchant to building things when you are in the grad school of building robots and participating in such. So at the grad school level, you should see if you can get into some projects, build some projects, and see if you enjoy the process of building. And then on the entrepreneurial side, then it becomes a question of like, are you really solving a problem? Like, you really have to ask that question very hard. Because if you go and you are like, oh, this should be a problem, and then you start selling the problem to sell your solution for it, then it's not really a problem. So
Mm,
very well oriented in like what is the actual pain point, and being in touch with the customer across their journey to be like, okay, this pain point is the same, or is it different, or I read it wrong. So continuously questioning the pain point and making sure that is being addressed.
interesting. If you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice at the start of your journey, the start of your career, what would that have been?
Yeah, my advice would be to not think of things in like very smaller incremental steps and be like, oh, I have to do X, then I can do Y, then I can do Z, and it's this. But like, directly go and do the thing you really want to do, and not create these imaginary steps and milestones for you that delay the entire process of where you want to get to. So just go for the thing you really want and back myself through that process.
Interesting. Can you give me an example? Like, it sounds like you were talking about obviously previously going into the cars and stuff like that early on. Is that something that you, looking back, you'd be like, hey, let me just go and do that? Or are you talking about career path? What is it that you're
It's
referring
more
to?
like I need to have like X years of experience before I can manage a team. And
Got
then
it.
it requires X years of experience for me. I need to build certain things, ship thousands of product before I can even think about leading a team to product management. So figured out like as we have grown is like all the people who are working in this space, they are also figuring things out on the fly. It's not that everybody has a playbook, been there, done that, and now we are
Yeah.
executing it all over again. But that was my mindset that I have to be there, done that, and then
Yes.
I'm like just executing it. So figuring out is a thing that will continue to happen. So just why not go at the level you want to operate at and then execute at that level.
Yeah, it's good advice. I think it's also, I know I've referenced this a few times with you, but it sounds like very self-aware, mature perspective to think of it the way that you did instead of let me not put those roadblocks or those that path in place. Because I'll just, using some of my personal perspective, I'm kind of the same way that I maybe it's more from like a imposter syndrome avoiding kind of way, but like you would almost feel like you haven't earned that
haven't earned yet.
position.
We don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't deserve, why would anyone want to listen to me, or why do I think this is the right way of doing it if I don't have anything to back it up or
yeah,
experience? And you see time and time again, like the most innovative, first principle kind of new way of doing it, founders and leaders never did before.
never
They
did.
just had
Yeah,
something within them, a view, a vision, a calling that they went after instead of thinking about like the traditional. And I don't know. I mean, both of them have value, in my opinion. Both of them have value because, like, with experience comes authority and
good
also
decision making.
good decision making because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah,
Because I've seen it the other way, right? A lot of 20-year-old founders that I know of in the industry right now that are like bombing companies and creating terrible cultures because they don't know what they don't know and they don't care to learn.
yeah,
But there's two sides to it. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it was wrong.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all right, before we wrap up, quick bonus segment that I would love to
Nice.
touch on here. If you could instantly master any skill outside of technology, what would it be?
Oof. Outside of technology, I think it would be the ability to interact with a person and have a very interesting conversation and get them interested in you. Like, to be much more social is a skill
Mm,
that I think it's kind of like building technology. It's a skill that you build over a period of time by like
yeah,
talking, being in this awkward positions where there is a dead silence, talking to people, and then how to nurture that. So I think like that is the skill that I would like to master. I think it's a very powerful skill.
I like it. Yeah, that's very true. I honestly, I think you do a great job anyway. And like you mentioned earlier on, we've met each other a few times, different events and stuff like that. And those are awkward
Oh,
situations, right?
right.
Especially if you're naturally an introvert, which no one would believe, but I naturally am. But it's only because of putting myself in a ton of these.
These situations
I'm
again and again.
alone, yeah, right, and I have to figure it out, type of thing. But yeah, it's yeah, very valuable.
And I
Um,
think, especially in today's day and time, this is getting down. Like people are behind their screens most of the time.
yes,
So,
yes,
like I think the older folks were much better at this skill than we are because
yeah,
of how they interacted versus how we interacted using chatbots and stuff.
yeah. They had to get out and shake hands and meet people and dinner parties and just awkwardness, right? Um, yeah, very good point. What's a book or podcast or resource that's had a big influence on your thinking recently?
Yeah, that's a good one. I recently was hearing this podcast by Naval Ravikant, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. So I guess like you would also really like it. Like he puts how the world operates in a very succinct words, like what is capitalism, like how do you gain success, what is the metrics for being successful, and then also dovetails into like what is happiness in life and how do you make sure the both of them dovetail, like ambition and happiness dovetail. So like it's a good assimilation of like the how to be pragmatism versus like the real life, and it's a good
Yeah,
blend of it.
I like that. I'll have to look that one up and add it to my list.
List. Yeah.
If Raise Robotics could collaborate with any company, inside or outside of robotics, who would the dream partner be?
Oof. Collaborating with any company. I mean, we are already collaborating with a few companies like Hilti and all those companies we are collaborating with to develop tools for the construction.
That's cool.
Um, I think like if we are able to collaborate with larger construction equipment companies like scissor lift companies and such, like uh, then that would be a good dream partner for us in the near term at least.
Yeah, very cool. Well, look, thank you so much for being on the show today, Rishabh. It's been
It
a
was a
great
pleasure.
conversation. Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time and great timing as well. I know you guys recently raised. I know you got a lot of cool stuff going on at the company and growing, etc. How can our listeners learn more about you guys, find out about opportunities that are coming up, and just follow along for all of the cool stuff that you guys are doing?
Yeah, you guys can like our LinkedIn is pretty active, so you guys can follow us on LinkedIn. Like me, Gary Conley, you can follow any of us, and then follow the LinkedIn page of Raise Robotics. We are posting more or less like regularly now of like what is happening and what is panning out in our world right now.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you again. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. This was great. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you, Greg. It was really like a fluid conversation.
Appreciate that. Great. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.